Let's explore the modifiers now. So if you see this blue wrench or the blue spanner, you'll see under this you can find all these modifiers. We'll see array modifier first. So to the very basic level, it basically duplicates the object, but let's see how it duplicates. So in the relative offset, as you can see, I'm increasing the factor of x to 1.5, and you can see there's a distance of 1.5. If I increase in y, then this thing will move in x and y cumulative, and if I do z, then it will come into 3D space. So basically it's the relative offset relative to all the three axes. We can increase the number of cube by increasing the count. Now let's see constant offset. Constant offset is also very similar, but it will, as it says, it will be constant. So you can give the value to x, y, z to see the effect. So I have given some value of 2, 2 and 1. So we'll see, we have seen this constant effect. Third one is the object offset, that will look into separate videos. Basically it means duplicating object with respect to other objects. It can be any curve also. In the relative offset that we have seen before, you can edit the first object and you can have the effect on other objects that we have duplicated. So you don't have to do one by one. So if you just edit the first object, it will have the effect to other objects as well, like this. So last time we have seen array modifier, I just want to let you know a few more things. So in the relative offset, you can choose to do a combination of the axes. You don't always have to use all the three axes. So let's say if I do single axis, then it will move or duplicate in single direction, but if I do combination of axes, then it will move in the 3D space. Let's say if I do only the combination of two axes, then it will move in a certain direction, like this. So in this case, x and z. You can always increase the number of counts. Same goes for constant offset as well. So you can use the combination of x and y, or y and z, or just simply x or simply z. Let's see a very basic example of array modifier. So I'm increasing the count to 4, and in the relative offset, the factor of x is 1, rest everything is 0. Then we apply the modifier. I'm going to do the same on the 4 balls, but this time I'll change the relative offset y factor as 1. So as you can see, we'll have this sort of effect with 4 counts. Now all the balls selected, I'll apply one more time with 4 counts, and this time I'll put z as 1 and x and y as 0. Always remember to apply the modifier and you'll have this sort of effect. So we are going to apply array modifier again to this monkey, and let's increase the count to, let's say, 7. I'm going to show you what a relative offset can do. So right now in the relative offset we have x is equal to 1. Go to add and add an empty axis. So now go to object offset and select this object as empty. Now if select the empty, and if you manipulate empty, for example if I do rotate, the entire monkey head will have this effect. In case of scale, as you can see, there is a relative change in scale in x-axis because we have given the value of x as 1. Similarly, if you move the monkey from each other, there will be a distance, relative distance of 1 meter. It will appear as if it is compounding with every count of the monkey head. Let's do the same thing with the cube so that it will be more clear to you. So let's add a cube now. So I'm just performing the same operation, and as you can see, in the rotation it's not a problem. Okay, it will have this sort of effect. I'm just moving the empty axis. But if I do scale, as you can see, with each cube the factor of scale will increase with whatever number that we have given in relative offset number. So we have this block, cube block, and we have circle. We'll select the block and we'll add array modifier, and we'll also add curve modifier. In the curve modifier we'll select the curve, and in the array modifier we can increase the number of counts like this. So if we increase the number of counts, basically it's a combination of both array and curve. Now we can scale the cube in such a way that it basically clamps to each other, or else you can add more counts to make it clamp, just like this. Once you're happy, you can apply both the modifiers. So now this thing is permanent. Now you're free to do duplicate, or you can rotate it with respect to z-axis, and you can do multiple action. So you can use a combination of modifiers to achieve whatever you want. So this time we use array and curve modifier to achieve this sort of result. Like last time we have applied curve modifier and array modifier both at once. So I just want to show you a few more options here. I'm going to increase the counts, and in the constant offset we can change the number, so you will have equal number of gaps between the cubes, and again you can just rotate it, or you can scale the count to get a constant offset. Offset means a constant gap between the cubes. Will apply both the modifiers. And now if you go to edit mode, you can individually select them. There was an option where we can select all at once, but in this case you can individually select them because we have already applied the modifiers. And now this will give us a lot of opportunities to individually edit the cubes, or we can do it all at once also, just like I'm doing. So I have just basically extruded from the faces. I'm going to scale it, and I'm going to insert it, and again I'm going to extrude it. So this is just an example that we can individually edit them, or we can do it all at once also. So let's apply build modifier to this monkey. So if you move the frame rate here, you'll see this monkey is having the kind of build effect. You can use this in animation, so you can just play with the frame and you can do it. If you click on the randomize, as the name suggests, it will basically do this randomize building, so like a ghost effect, as you can say that. But a lot of people use this for animation and stuff. I have selected few of the faces randomly on this sphere, and I'm going to delete them. And let's apply a cast modifier, and let's change it to cylinder. So you can see some weird faces with the help of cast modifier. Now if you want to give thickness to it, we can directly add a solidify modifier. So if we add a solidify modifier, now the game will change little bit. So the moment you give thickness, you'll see some depth in this particular geometry, in this particular object, and you can play with it. This is very random stuff, so I'm just going wild with this 2 modifier, but we can always choose to use a combination of modifiers. Like now I have also added the subdivision surface modifier. So this was just for the fun, but you can always use a combination of modifiers. You can change one form of the object to other form by using cast modifier. So as you can see, this sphere can be converted into a cylinder, and we have axes and we have factor. We can individually choose the axis and we can change the factor here. So this was a sphere before, and now you can see we can do a lot of changes. So in the shape we chose cylinder, but we have option of radius also, and we have option of size. We can go with cuboid also. So the sphere can be converted into cuboid, but it has limitation, as you can see. We can do a lot of weird stuff with this modifier. So let's change this monkey head, Susan head, and let's convert it into a sphere. So as you can see, this is turning out to be really interesting. So if we change it into a cuboid, you will have different sort of effect like this. It's looking cool because it can be converted into very comic kind of structure, comic shapes. So just play with this modifiers and see what you can come up with. As a beginner you can do, you are free to do anything. So just come up with different ideas, play with it, and this is how you will grow. Let's add a curve. Let's add a Bezier curve, and we'll scale it in x-axis, as you can see. Now we'll add a curve modifier, but as you can see, we have to select the chain and we have to put the curve modifier. We'll select the curve as Bezier curve, and the deformation axis will be y because our chain was in y-axis. Now if we select the curve and if we go to edit mode, we'll have the handle to basically change it. So now the control is in our hand. We can change the curve and our chain will follow. So this is not just limited to this chain. I have just shown you this example. We can make railway tracks, we can make ropes, anything that need curve. We can kind of use it with the help of curve modifier, and we can manipulate at any point of time just with the curve, because we'll have vertices and we can edit the curve like this. Bevel modifier is also pretty much like the bevel tool. We have all the options here, so we can change the segments from here. We can change the amount as well. We can even switch to vertices directly from here, like this. And we come down here, we'll have the profiles as well. So directly we can change the profile. We have custom profile. We can switch to presets from here. It's not looking good because we have applied the modifier to the entire cube. So last time when we saw the bevel tool, we only did it to one edge, and in this case we are doing to the entire cube. Let's model a chain and then we'll give it a curve modifier. So right now go to wireframe mode and we'll select see through and we'll select the bottom half of this torus. Now we'll grab it and pull it in the y-axis like this. So now we can go back to the solid mode and we'll have one link of the chain. We're going to duplicate it with Shift D and we're going to rotate it in y-axis like this. So we'll have two links now, and again if we just do the duplicate with Shift D, we can create a long chain. So once you are happy with the length of the chain, there is one thing you can do and one you should do. You select everything and press Ctrl J. So if you do Ctrl J, all the links will be joined and it will act as a single object. Let's see what a decimate modifier do. So basically you can choose the symmetry or you can choose the individual axes and you can play with the ratio. So as you move down the ratio, the modifier is basically removing the face. So it is basically the opposite of subdivision surface modifier. So we have option of unsubdivide, so we can directly put the iteration and we'll have reduced number of faces. And the third option is planar. Depending upon the angle limit, we can remove the faces. So subdivision surface basically add the faces or the geometry, and decimate will remove the faces or the geometry. Let's test this modifier on a sphere. So as you can see, if I remove the ratio, if I move down the ratio, you can see the changes in the geometry. In the unsubdivide also, we can see at one iteration we have this effect, which can be combined with the wireframe modifier and we can get cool models. And in the planar also, we can play with the angle limit and we'll have some sort of geometry like this. Add a lattice over the monkey. At the right corner down, you will have the lattice option where you can edit the U, V and W. Basically U, V, W are the segments of the lattice. I'm giving 444. You can choose any number. And then if you go to modifier, we have lattice modifier, and in the object we'll select lattice. Now you can select the lattice and go to edit mode. So if you go to edit mode, basically this lattice is now connected with the monkey. And if you select the vertices of lattice, you can move them and will have some effect in the monkey or the object that you have under the lattice. So basically the object or the monkey in this case will be controlled by the lattice that is around it. So we'll have much more control. If you want, you can go back to the lattice edit and you can increase the U, V or W value of this to increase more segment like this to have better control over the object. Screw modifier is one of my favorite. So if I apply screw modifier on the cube, basically what it does is it will rotate the entire object in some angle. So here we can change the angle, we can change the axis as well. So this is just the cube which is converted, and with the increase in angle it will have different effect. Although this is not just the power of modifier, we'll look into it. If you increase the screw, now as you can see the cube has expanded in x-axis and y-axis. In this case axis object we'll choose afterwards, but right now if I increase the iteration, it will basically increase in length. And step viewport, if we increase the step viewport, it will give smoothness to our mesh. So as you can see, we'll have more faces and we'll have more smoothness. Now let's add an empty axis. Now things will change. Now if we select the empty axis and from here axis object, and if we rotate the axis, just the axis, you can see the effect in our mesh, which was a cube some time ago. And so this is the power. We can manipulate our object, we can increase the screw length or iteration. So by increasing the iteration, it has increased in length. We can always change the viewport to change the smoothness, and if we play with screw value, we can increase and decrease the length in this manner as well. Select this plane and add a ocean modifier. So as you can see, basically we are trying to create a ocean and we'll be animating this, so we'll need our keyframe. So if you go down, you'll see a lot of option. In the waves, you can see this choppiness. If you increase the choppiness to 5, you can see the effect here, and it will be much more clear on the animation when we play the animation. And under the spectrum, we have 4 different sort of ocean waves. At frame number 0, put time equal to 0 and press I and put insert frame. And at frame number 250, time will be, let's say, 15, and just click on the time and press I and put insert frame. And now if you press the space bar, the animation will play and you can see the ocean flowing like this. You can play with the waves height and all, but we have already pre-installed waves, so we'll just look into this. So under spectrum, we have 4 different type. We'll see first shallow water, and you can see it will look like this. Let's see established ocean now. So it is less turbulent than the previous one, and established ocean, as you can see, less volatile, but it is also because of the choppiness, so we can always bring down the choppiness and the height of the wave. Let's apply remesh modifier. So remesh has a cool feature of block that we'll see shortly. So we have the sharp, voxel, smooth option. So if we increase the depth, we'll have smoothness on this monkey, and this is the one I was talking about. If we have block, we can have this Minecraft effect on our meshes. So as you can see, we can increase the depth and we can even increase the scale, and we'll have this sort of effect. Very cool. So I'm using this landscape and I'm applying remesh modifier, and one by one I'll apply everything: sharp, voxel, smooth and blocks, to show you the effect on any sort of mesh. There is a longer option to use mirror modifier, but we'll just go with the shortcut. We'll go to edit, preferences, and activate the auto mirror add-on. Now simply press N, and you can see here in the edit option at the top you have auto mirror. You just need to click on auto mirror and the add-on is activated now. So if you go to edit mode, you can see the other half that we can edit it. So if I do the inset in the face and extrude it, so now everything that I do on one face of x-axis, it will basically replicate on the other side of the x-axis. So this is what mirror modifier will do. Clipping is also very important. So if I uncheck clipping and if I select this plane, if I move it, you see it just opens up. But if I check the clipping and if I try to move, you can see it is now connected and it won't open up like before. You can perform auto mirror on all the 3 axes. Now let's move this monkey to the side of x-axis. Now let's apply mirror modifier directly from here, and if you go to top on this options, you click on the origins and you just need to grab the monkey, and as you can see we'll have 2 different monkeys, and if you edit it, both will have the same effect. So this is also one part of mirror modifier that we can do. But if you are doing just for single object, you can just simply press Alt D and do it. But yeah, auto mirror do this also. Let's see a few more examples. So I'm just following the same steps. I'm just making simple curve and applying the modifier, screw modifier, and we are having this results. And don't worry about the topology, it will have perfect topology. Let's add a shrink wrap modifier now. So I have subdivided plane like 50 times and I have this monkey. So I'll select the plane and then I'll add a shrink wrap modifier. So in this, if I choose the target as Susan, you'll see the plane has wrapped around the Susan, but it is no good. We'll do wrap method as project, and now as you can see, the monkey head is basically projecting on the plane, and if I remove the monkey, you can see how cool this is looking. And the good thing is we can actually move the monkey and the projection will still happen. So like this, if I move it, the projection will happen on the plane. We can change the limit of the projection and we can also change the subdivision length. But wait, let me show you something more cool. If you click this negative instead of positive, and if you move the monkey down in the z-axis, you will see it is basically projected in the opposite way, and you can see as if the monkey is buried under the ground. And how cool is this looking? Like, we can use this sort of thing in a lot of animation and game asset as well. And if you put the face collars back, now see what will happen. We can actually animate this sort of ghost effect which is coming out of a wall or something, like the Vision do in the Marvel movies. So I have this rod with me and I'm selecting the four edges, the outer edges of this rod, and I'm going to do Control B. So I'm going to bevel it little bit and then I'm going to apply loop cuts. I'm giving 20 loop cuts to this rod, and I'm going to add 2 more loop cuts at the extreme end of this rod. Now let's add a simple deform modifier, and we'll choose the axis. Right now it's in X. We'll choose the Z axis and we'll see some sort of twist here. Let's change the angle from 45 to 180 and you can see more twist here, and if we do 360 we'll have even more twist. Let's add subdivision surface modifier to give more smoothness to it. We can go to level 2 and you can see it is much more smooth. Now the good thing is, under this restriction in the simple deform, you can play with this limits. As you can see, there is a limit and we have 2 handles here, basically 2 controls. So we can either choose half of the rod or 1/4 of the rod or 3/4 of the rod, and we can choose the deformation as per our requirement. Let's add a simple deform modifier. So as the name suggests, we'll deform it. So in the twist option in the y-axis, we can change the angle, and as you can see, with the change in angle it will deform or it will twist. You can also bend the rod in all the 3 axes, and with the change in angle you can see the effect. With taper, we can create taper in all the 3 axes, and stretch will basically stretch in X, Y and Z axis, which is very straightforward. I have added a skin modifier to this cube and I'm just playing with the extrude option. Skin modifier is not limited only just to cube, we can use it on any object, but I'm just demonstrating you how you can use a skin modifier. So a combination of skin modifier and extrude can bring about this sort of geometry. Let's apply solidify modifier to this cube. So as you can see, it will basically solidify the walls of this cube. We have 3 different modes: constraint thickness, simple thickness and even thickness. So as the name suggests, they will just basically give thickness. In the even thickness we'll have even. If we switch on the flip, we'll have this sort of effect. Basically we can divide the geometry in like this. And if we come down to the normals, if we click flip on here, we can basically add thickness to the outer and the inner boundaries of the geometry. So bottom line is, if you want to add depth and even the thickness, you can use this modifier. Subdivision surface modifier basically add more division to your geometry, to your object. So by adding more faces and more geometry, and it will invariably will increase the smoothness on the surface, as you can see. Let's apply subdivision to cube. So as you can see, with we can increase the level, so with every level we'll have more faces and more smoothness on the cube. But if we go to edit mode, we'll have this faces and vertices of a cube, and we can edit it normally like we would do to a cube, and we can see the changes after applying a subdivision surface modifier to the cube. We can apply everything from extrude to inset to everything, as you can see. So we'll have much more control if we go to edit mode along with the subdivision surface modifier. Now in this case, if we apply subdivision surface, you'll see it will look little weird. So we'll go into edit mode and let's make use of loop cuts here. So if you apply a loop cut and if you move it to the boundary, we can actually control the subdivision surface. So because we are basically just limiting the angles, so just apply a loop cut and move it to the boundary, so you'll have this sort of effect. And to apply more geometry and more smoothness, we can just increase the subdivision levels. So as you can see, it is now smoothened out and it looks much more better than the previous one. So use loop cuts for more control to the subdivision surface modifier. We have this plane, we'll subdivide it 40 times. And let's apply a wave modifier. So as the name suggests, we can create waves with it, a wave animation. So if we simply play, it will just go like this. We can change the fallout value. Fallout means the area. We can also change the height, width and narrowness. So we can play all this value and we can create different sort of animation, wave animation. We can also give texture effect. So if we come down here, we have texture option, we'll add new, and under the local we have already some pre-installed textures available in the Blender. So out of this many texture, we'll select just one. I'll just show you one example, and within those texture also we have so many texture. So as you can see, we have this line sort of effect, the cross hatching line. Let's select something else. If we have this noise wave, we can have this noise wave as well, and few more options we have. We can also limit the wave option to a certain area. So if we select the vertices and we make a group, we can just limit those wave to a limited area. You can also create waves to object like this. So now this is where it will become very interesting. You can create this earthquake sort of effect. Let's give this cube a wireframe modifier. So basically wireframe modifier will kind of give thickness to the edges of any object like this. We can adjust the edges. We can click on replace original, so that original object will also be there along with the edges, thicken the edges, which wireframe modifier do. We can choose the thickness as even or relative. There is option of crease edge also. We can change, and by moving the slider we can change the factor. And as you can see, this is very simplistic example, but you can do a lot with this modifier. So in this case, I have sandwiched a wireframe modifier between two subdivision modifier, and you can create something like this. This is just a very simple example. You can do a lot with wireframe modifier.